And it's a recording of and a commentary about a week with the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who met in Dharamsala, India, to celebrate His Holiness's 80th birthday, which is like really awesome. This man is amazing, right? Dalai Lama, really. Yeah. So the back of the cover of the book says this: Nobel Peace Prize laureates, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu have survived more than 50 years of exile and soul-crushing violence of oppression, despite their hardships, or as they would say, because of them. They are two of the most joyful people on the planet. By the end of a week filled with laughter and punctuated with tears, these two global heroes had stared into the abyss and despair of our times and revealed how to live a life brimming with joy. So perhaps, just perhaps, there is something we can gain from their wisdom. Because, you know, lots of times when our joy is dimmed, we just don't even understand how there can be joy. And sometimes when you see, like, devastating events in the world, on the planet, you see all the joy. You see the children playing. You see the adults helping one another. You see this joy in the human spirit. And we're going to get into that today. But I wanted to begin our time this morning with a passage from the book. And it's a lengthy one, but I think it's really important to hear. And I want to do more than just begin our time with it. I want us really to get the idea that, you know, the name of this center is Joyful Gathering. And that was a download. That was just a download. I was doing a once-a-month Friday night, and Stephen knows because he was there, in Berlin at a little church. And every month, we would meet. And just driving over, I think I have a name for this, right? I have a name. So, boom, Joyful Gathering. So then when it came time, like a few months later, 6 months later, well, we're going to do a spiritual sun here because Vince DiPasquale, who founded Starting Point, was like, I want you to do this on Sundays. And I'm like, well, okay. I had to think for about half a minute. Okay. Carol knows. Carol was there too. One of my first practitioners. And it was like, well, Joyful Gathering Spiritual Center. We just stick that on the end, and there you have it. So we've evolved, and we're approaching our 10th year. And we're really, yeah, the 10th year we really. It's a new decade for me. If you would have been here last week, I had 3 birthday cakes. So I'm really rocking the 70s, as they would say, and I don't mean 1970. The 70s, yeah. Doing that whole thing. And Joyful Gathering also begins its new decade. So we got a lot of really exciting changes that we're ensuing and I know we're going to manifest for this year. So this is from the book, and it's on page 19. And these are the words of the Dalai Lama. One great question underlies our existence. What is the purpose of life? Right? After much consideration, I believe the purpose of life is, and so before I finish that quote, I want to digress for a moment, as I usually do. And if you've been with us the last few months, you know that we've been talking about purpose. What is our true purpose on this planet in this time? And we've discussed, we used Brene Brown's book, and we're going to discuss that a little bit today also on vulnerability, but what our purpose is. So, you know, one of the first questions, I mean, remember when you were a teenager? And it was like, who am I? Well, that's still one of the greatest questions that can ever be asked of yourself to yourself. Because only you can uncover who and what you are here for. Each of us is here for an absolute purpose. Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind about that. So, I'm going to go back to the Dalai Lama, so I'm going to start over again. One great question underlies our existence. What is the purpose of life? After much consideration, I believe the purpose in life is to find happiness. It does not matter whether one is Buddhist, like me, or a Christian, like Archbishop, or any other religion, or no religion at all. None of that matters. It doesn't matter. From the moment of birth, he writes, every human being wants to discover happiness. No difference in our culture or our education or our religion affects this. From the very core of our being, we simply desire joy and contentment. But so often these feelings are fleeting and hard to find, like a butterfly that lands on us and then flutters away. The ultimate source of happiness is within us. Not money, not power, not status. Outward attainment will not bring real inner joyfulness. So simple and so brilliant. And he continues, we must look inside. Sadly, many of the things that undermine our joy and happiness, we create ourselves. Often it comes from the negative tendencies of the mind, emotional and reactivity, or from our inability to appreciate and utilize the resources that exist within us. The suffering from natural disasters we cannot control, but the suffering from our daily disasters we can. We create most of our suffering, so it should be logical that we also have the ability to create more joy. And he's continuing. It simply depends on the attitudes, the perspectives, and the reactions we bring to situations and to our relationships with other people. When it comes to personal happiness, there is a lot that we as individuals can do. And I tell you, if that does not sound like religious science, New Thought, which is what we are, which is an open, inclusive, as Ernest Holmes would say. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, open at the top. We are open at the top. So there is no limitation, and I love that. I love that because I don't like rules too much. Just the rules I make up. Anyway, he's in alignment with Ernest Holmes. He absolutely is, because Holmes wrote this in Richer Living. He wrote, our mental attitudes and our most priceless possessions, no material security is actually secure. But the deep issues of our thought can make or unmake us. His holiness is right in line with that idea. So this morning we're going to take 3 ideas from that quote, and we're going to dig into them a little bit to really get to understand what is this joy that we keep talking about. Joy to the world. So here are the 3 topics we're going to cover real fast. Not real fast, but the ultimate source of joy/happiness is found within us. The second is, we often undermine our own joy and happiness. And then, conversely, we also create our own joy and happiness. So, we're going to start digging a little bit into that. The ultimate source of happiness or joy is within us. And I must point out that this statement of His holiness, the word source is not capitalized. We capitalize certain words when they are relating to the divine. So for this topic this morning, we're going to capitalize that S, the source of all good, right? The source of our joy is inside of us. Page 292 of The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes suggests that we say to ourselves, this is so good, these are like, talk about affirmations, these are affirmations. I am joy and happiness. I am the spirit of joy within me. I radiate life. Isn't that a good one? I radiate life. I am life. There is one life. That's God's life. That's my life right now. Holmes cautions us, it's not enough to say there is one life. That is God's life. We must add that last part, and that is my life now. One life, God's life, that's my life now. Love that. That's by Ernest Holmes, and that is the truth that is the foundation of the spiritual teachings that we have here. We need to close the circuit, if you will, in order for us to express this one life, the spirit of joy. And Holmes writes, we are not becoming this life, but are now in and of this life. We are one with all that is. And we could adapt that to say, we are not becoming joy, we are now in and of joy itself. Happiness. Isn't that all that anyone truly, really wants to feel is happiness? And we keep searching for it. It's the source of addiction. We keep searching outside of ourselves when all along, if we are not satisfied and in alignment with our own self, the truth of our being, our divine, eternal self, there can be no true happiness and joy. The rest is all fleeting. So the Dalai Lama is absolutely right in alignment with Ernest Holmes when he wrote that the source of joy is within, because the source of joy is the one life that is our life now. So I'm going to ask you to repeat this after me. I am joy, peace, and happiness.
I am joy, peace, and happiness.
I am the spirit of joy within me.
I am the spirit of joy within me.
I radiate life.
I radiate life.
I am life.
I am life.
There is one life.
There is one life.
And that's my life now.
And that's my life now.
So it is.
So
I
it is.
just go home right now, but I have more here. That's it.
Right.
That's all it in a nutshell. This is our spiritual truth. And if we get it, if we really get it, it's done. It is done. Nobody can take it away. Nobody can interfere with it in any form or matter. It is up to us because it's ours. We own it. So I want to explore the second one. We often undermine our joy and happiness. So how do we do that? Specifically, he said, sadly, many of the things that undermine our joy and happiness we create ourselves. Often it comes from the negative tendencies of the mind, emotional reactivity, or from our ability to appreciate and utilize the resources that exist within us. So, as I was prayerfully considering this morning, that is when Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly, which we did explore, came into play also. She actually has a lot to say about how we push away our joy with our negative thoughts. I know I do. I have to catch myself and bring myself back. There's disciplines we can use. Our emotional reactivity, the way we react to things, we can control that when we learn the discipline of how. And from our inability to appreciate all that exists. Appreciation is big in this. She calls it, Brene Brown calls it foreboding joy, or the paradoxical dread that clamps down around momentary joyfulness. You ever be in that really joyful mood and everything's going so great? Here's some examples of it. And here's one. And so you're in a relationship and you really love your partner and you're feeling the love, and it's like, this is really great. But what if he leaves? What if I'm left alone again? And I'll have to deal with this pain. And all these thoughts start creeping in. Foreboding joy. This is all foreboding joy. Or you're feeling about how good life is. Life is really good. I'm loving life. Except for when you take that wrong turn. Except for, like, anything can happen. And you can add the ending to that. You're realizing that you love your job. You really love what you do. But then the mind starts giving you scenarios. Oh yeah, well, they're downsizing here, or it could be, yeah, what if nobody comes and then we have to close it up? And this is what we do as humans, is foreboding joy. It's not allowing that joy to come fully into our lives. I remember my mother, my sister's not here today because Mary Ann Borden took everybody on a trip to Key West. 5 people with her. Okay, so, but I mean, we would get excited and she would say, she had an English accent, well, don't get excited, you don't know what's going to happen. You know, and so I said to Kathleen yesterday, my sister, are you excited to go to Key West? She goes, you know we don't get excited. There's a good part to that, and then there's that negative side to that, like, well, if you get too excited, something's going to happen. You know, you get too. But then there's also the philosophy of excitement. Can also be kind of like a lack thing, because there is an opposite to that where, well, I can't remember the name of the person who said it, but it's like, be in excited expectancy. That was Genevieve Beran, her book. So be in excited, not excited, just the expectancy, not the excitement. But anyway, that was to me, it jumped right out like, whoa, that is right. Don't get excited about that because you don't know what's going to happen. You know, and all of a sudden you're a little kid and you were all excited about it. Oh God, I don't know what's going to happen. So again, that's our foreboding joy as humans. But we can play different scenarios. We can learn to shift that, to change that with our spiritual tools. And the biggest one we have, 2 biggest ones, for me anyway, is gratitude and live in the moment. Because in this moment, I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling like life is good, and I'm not letting any other thought interfere with that. And if it does come in, I can push that away and say, you know what, I'm so grateful for this moment right here, right now. It's all I have. It's all any of us have. We only have this now moment. There is no other moment, right? There's no past moment. There's no future moment. There's this moment, because that's where you're living, right?
Right.
You walk in, it's one now moment. When you leave here today, it's another now moment. It's eternal. It's eternal. So it can have many different scenarios. Now I know a church that is based on the idea that since we are expressions of the infinite creator, we are creative beings. Thus, what we might think and feel is what we create in our lives. We might not want to admit that any of that, but it's, you know, we can think one thing and feel another. It's not in alignment. The thinking and the feeling part must be in total alignment. That's when we manifest, because the law of God, the law of the divine, that law of the infinite energy is responding to us. We create through the law. So the clearer we are in our thought and in our feeling, and when they come together, watch out, we manifest. We manifest exactly what we desire in the highest and best way possible. But a lot of us do things like the foreboding joy. And research shows that we as humans, it's not a natural, but kind of a normal thing for us to do. Anybody relate to that?
Yeah.
Or is it just me, right? Okay, the answer is pretty straightforward according to Brene Brown. Deep, sweet joy bubbling up in us makes us vulnerable. She's all about vulnerability. To being hurt. Should it go away? So we're afraid something's going to go away. We become vulnerable when we open up. But love and infinite potential is alive in that vulnerability. That's where it lives. Otherwise, what we do is we slap it down, we shut it down to keep ourselves from being hurt. And we learn that lots of times as children. So if I just turn away from this, shut this down, I'll be okay. But when we open up, we open ourselves up to great good, but we can also open ourselves up to great hurt. But I wouldn't give up that greater good for all the hurt in the world. Because experiencing great new experiences takes being vulnerable. It takes that. So a man in his early 60s, this is in Brown's study, one of her studies, said this: I used to think the best way to go through life was to expect the worst. That way, if it happened, you were prepared. Then I was in a car accident and my wife was killed. Needless to say, expecting the worst didn't prepare me at all. And worse, I still grieved for all those wonderful moments my wife and I shared that I didn't fully enjoy. My commitment to her memory is to fully enjoy every moment now, and I wish she were here so that she would see how we could do that. So how do we do that? That's our final idea for this morning. How do we do that? How do we truly live fully? I'm saying since I'm beginning my new decade, I intend to live my life as fully as I can in each moment. Do I forget? Sometimes, of course I do. But I go back to that intention, the fullness. That means my heart must be open. That means I must have that open-heartedness, which in my case was a whole big process many years ago that I had to start, not knowing. We don't know when our hearts are closed. We are not even aware that we shut them down at an early age to protect ourselves. If you've been through trauma, you know what I'm talking about. So to come out of that takes great trust. But what gifts, what incredible gifts we give to ourselves from that. So we can create joy and happiness. We can do it. What are we talking about? Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, who went through such suffering, and their philosophy is happiness and joy. Okay, so situations don't determine that. It's the inner self that determines how we truly are going to take this experience, learn from this experience, and find joy in it. And remember, Holmes said this: we create most of our suffering. So it should be logical that we have the ability to create more joy. It simply depends on the attitudes, the perspectives, and the reactions we bring to the situations and to our relationships with other people. And according to Brene Brown's research, we all have this foreboding joy phenomena going on. Foreboding joy, I kind of like that. But those who live in joy-filled lives use it as a reminder rather than a way of living. They use it as a reminder because you start to get sensitive to what you feel. And if it doesn't feel good, something's off. You get spiritually sensitive. That's what you get, spiritually sensitive. And you can shift just like that. You can shift just like that to no, that's not the truth. This is the truth. This is all made up from up here. Sink down to here where there is no judgment. This is where the true intelligence and the gut lie. For then the shudder of vulnerability that accompanies joy is an invitation to practice all the powerful and practical spiritual lessons and tools that we have to use them. And all of them are really going to culminate into this thing called gratitude. Gratitude is such a high vibration. Gratitude goes with joy. It's equal. It's equal. So that high vibration of gratitude, you're going to be in a state of joy. You're going to be. And there's so much to be grateful for, as we know. We know this. Gratitude, therefore, emerged from the data as an antidote to foreboding joy. So there you have it. You just have to be thankful. You're in that spot. Find something, get in that attitude of gratitude, get in there, because that will shift everything for you. In fact, every participant in Brown's study who spoke about the ability to stay open to joy also talked about the importance of gratitude. Brown learned most about gratitude practices and the relationship they have to joy from men and women who experience some of the most severe, traumatic, and profound losses in their lives. They learn to be grateful. There are so many people I know that have cancer, and they say, this is one of the greatest lessons that I have ever had. It brought me so much joy. They learn to appreciate something. I don't know. I have my own lessons to go through, and that's not one of them. So whatever it is that we go through, we learn from it, and then we find the peace, the joy, through learning the spiritual truth of that situation. That's the joy of this spirituality, this practical spirituality called religious science or New Thought. Be grateful for what you have. Don't take what you have for granted. Celebrate it. And this is important. Don't apologize for it. Don't apologize if you happen to be prosperous and other people don't look that prosperous, and there could be resentment, and then you feel like you need to. Do not embrace your prosperity and say, thank you, God, for this prosperity, and share it. You can share it. I mean, Facebook's great for that. I'm just like, you feel like a real benefactor of so many different causes, because you get to donate. You get to give. You get to give. So don't be embarrassed or try to dim down your prosperity, your greatness, the truth and the good, because abundance, as we know, is a birthright for all of us. And that abundance is rooted in joy. It's rooted in joy. And so, this is from Science of Mind, where Ernest Holmes wrote, if we wish to come to the Spirit for the healings of our wounds, let us come in peace and with spontaneous joy. For the Spirit is joy. Let us come with thanksgiving also, for a grateful heart is in harmony with life. So that, my friends, leads us to the question. It's one I'll be posing each week in December, and this question is, what would your life look like today, tomorrow, this month, next year, if you knew that you are here to experience greater and greater and even greater joy? What would your life look like? Keep that joy in the now moment. Keep it in the now moment, even if you don't feel it. Be grateful for something. It'll creep in. So I want to bring our time together to a close with a meditation from Ernest Holmes, and it's called Joy. Joy has come to live with me, from Ernest Holmes. This on page, in case you have the book, 538 of the Science of Mind textbook. He wrote this. So if you want to close your eyes, you can. If not, keep them open. Joy has come to live with me. How can I be sad? I do so love thy presence, which is joy within me. It makes me glad, and I sing, For I am filled with thy spirit, that I cannot be depressed nor unhappy. I am filled with the joy of the Spirit, and I overflow with the gladness of life. Thou art a happy companion to travel with me through life. Wonderful joy, thou art so radiant and beaming. It is impossible to be sad in thy presence. I shall give myself to thee and remain with thee, for thou art complete and satisfying. I find fulfillment in thee and joy forevermore. I am filled with the spirit of joy. I am filled with the spirit of joy. I am filled with the spirit of joy. And so it is.
So it is.